Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Rams Revealed, presented by NFL All Day. I'm JB Long, and this episode is brought to you in partnership with Sleep Number. We're going to explore some new territory today and learn about how the Rams find competitive advantages with their sleep and recovery process. We'll hear from Sleep Number sleep expert, Dr. Peter Polos. But first, here's Rams VP of Performance and Training, Reggie Scott. All right, so Reggie, way back when, what led you to the field of athletic performance and training?
When I first got introduced to athletic trainers, me obviously being an athlete in high school, and I got injured, dislocated my patella, and it's my first interaction with actually going through the rehabilitation process and meeting an athletic trainer at my high school. And at that time, I fell in love with it. And what I really fell in love with it about the most, JB, was just the appreciation that I have for him and how he got me back on the field. It was something that I wanted to do for somebody else one day. I think growing up, I was kind of a natural caregiver, wanted to care for people. I knew I loved people. But that feeling that I got when I got back on the field, and I'm like, this, my athletic trainer actually helped me get back on the field and do something I love to do at a very vulnerable moment when you didn't think you ever get back on the field sometimes, and these players feel that way. It was something that I wanted to kind of carry on. I think that was the first spark for me that, hey, this is something I might want to do for the rest of my life.
And how about the entry point from your academic career to the start of your professional one?
Yeah. I was fortunate to go to the best college in the country, West Virginia University, very prestigious college. But I was a Mountaineer, went there, obviously to go play baseball. Baseball didn't work out, and kind of dove right into sports medicine, athletic training, which I love to do. In between my junior and senior year, did an internship with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, just a summer internship, just like we do today with our athletic training program here, and did that for 6 weeks and fell in love with the NFL. That was my first touch with the NFL during training camp, which is high peak time. After that, when I graduated, they actually offered me a 4-year fellowship down there. So took up the offer, was actually going to go get my master's in physical therapy, but decided to, hey, let's go to the NFL and try this out. And after that year, full-time job opened up with the Carolina Panthers, and that's when I got on full-time in the NFL, and kind of just making those steps ever since. And obviously St. Louis got to be the head athletic trainer in 2010, and been here and been along with the moves ever since, and now here I am.
Given your youth and your start with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, now I see why they say that like Sean McVay is the Reggie Scott of NFL coaching, right? You kind of laid that foundation for him.
No, he's on a whole nother stratosphere what he's done. I got in very young, and I was fortunate to be head athletic trainer at 31 years. I didn't realize on the back end that doing this job that young, I keep looking like, man, I got a lot more years to go before I retire. It's a high stress job, but no, it's awesome, and I love what I do, and I'm fortunate.
So what you referenced there is when you did join the Rams some dozen years ago, you were the youngest in your position in modern NFL history. How did that opportunity present itself?
So basically that job opened up in terms of with the St. Louis Rams at the time. I knew a few of the coaches on the staff. I knew a few staff members on that staff. Didn't think much of it, but I thought it was a pretty good opportunity to try to put my name in the hat. And so through connections, which is big in the NFL, kind of submitted my resume to it, and got a phone call from Coach Steve Spagnuolo at the time, and wanted to send the obviously request over for my interview because I was in a contract with the Panthers, and got an interview. And I didn't really think I had a chance with the job because Coach Spagnuolo at the time had a lot of connections with the Philadelphia Eagles and the New York Giants, that I thought was just a good chance for me to get an interview opportunity. But lo and behold, you're talking about in terms of just maximizing every opportunity. I went on an interview and I was waiting 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and before you know it, I'm realized that I'm actually in the hunt to get this job. And he called me a few weeks later and just said, hey, we had a couple other angles that we wanted to go with, but you won the job. And that was really special for me. It really taught me from that day forth to JB that, contest mobility versus sponsor mobility is really important, and I really took that from Coach Spagnuolo. He always said, Reggie, we had people that we were thinking about hiring because I knew them, but you won the job. And I thought that was really cool, and I've taken that since then.
So you won the interview, but it does sound like relationships, like in any walk of life, especially in sports, are very important in that relationship building. Tell me about your work with the PFATS Foundation, the Professional Football Athletic Trainer Society.
Yeah, so PFATS is basically a society of all the athletic trainers in the NFL. And currently right now I'm the president of PFAS, finishing up my last year. I'm done actually in March, so got to go through the fun COVID years and all that. And basically what the society is made up of is all the athletic trainers in the NFL, and we work together to make a difference for our athletes that we deal with every day through research, through community service and foundation, and things that we can move the needle in terms of our profession, and then internally how we can continue to educate ourselves, how we can continue to move the needle in terms of all the different protocols and procedures. We work directly with the NFL on a lot of different initiatives, the General Medical Committee, the Head, Neck, and Spine Committee, the Sports Science Committee, and all these various committees, and with the Chief Medical Officer, Dr. Alan Seals, we work with them to make sure that we're carrying out great initiatives and giving these guys high quality care on the club level.
How about the National Athletic Trainers Association? And you're an ethnic diversity mentor there. What does that mean to you personally and for the future of this profession? Yeah,
it means a lot. I was so fortunate for people to help me along the way, specifically when you're talking about ethnic, the minority mentee program. It was so cool for me to have people like Ronnie Barnes and James Collins. These are people before me that, I was able to call up and reach out to them. They give me advice. And to this day, I still lean on them. And it's really cool, too, is that, as I was aspiring to be a head athletic trainer in the NFL, there is hope to see people above you that look like you. It's inspiring and it means a lot. And so it's something I want to give back to. It's a great program, and it's been cool to be a part of it.
So let's dig into your time with the Rams. I wonder off the top, who is the most impressive individual athlete you've worked with from a training standpoint?
Oh, well, that's a loaded question. You're going to get me in trouble with that one.
That was the hope.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, gosh. I mean, it's... we all know what Aaron Donald's capable of. He's probably one of the freakiest guys I've ever been able to watch and work with. Just the freaky gifts and traits that he has, but along with that, just his work ethics is pretty rare. I think Andrew Whitworth and what he was able to do for 17 years, that's rare. From a durability standpoint, playing in the trenches and O-line, those are two people that come to my mind when you're talking about just true natural talent with work ethics and what it can, when you blend those two together, what you can get, you get Aaron Donald and you get Andrew Whitworth. So those are two special ones. The other one I think of too a lot is Steve Smith back at Carolina. Really a tremendous athlete, really fun to watch on the field, really fun to watch behind the scenes and how he works. Just really a gifted person. So it's kind of cool to be on the front line and get to see some of that.
You and Aaron feud over the backyard brawl?
You know what? We've been kicking their butt for a lot of years, so it wasn't a lot of no. We do a little bit. It's funny. We chat a little bit here and there about it, but it's funny. Over the years, he's adamant about the Pittsburgh Crew, and he's big with those guys. But he doesn't follow college football as much. So sometimes I try to get on him, but he's always focused ahead and worrying about tomorrow.
What about from an injury recovery standpoint? Is there a success story in that realm that stands out to you?
Oh, there's so many, JB, from that standpoint. We have so many good guys, and there's so many different various recovery strategies out there today that we're really seeing from a passive modality standpoint, from an active modality standpoint, from just basic what I call hygiene and living, daily living, and the things that you do from a daily standpoint, diet, sleep, things of that nature. I think what's most incredible about what you're asking there is just how advanced and how much we have grown in that profession, in that space over the last 5 to 6 years. I mean, it's just immensely grown in terms of the influx of research in that space and, the technology in that space. And it's been really cool to watch that evolve over time. And it's been an intricate piece to our profession over the last 5 to 10 years.
It seems a lot like problem solving in a very specific realm whereby you have a physically broken individual, but you know what that path forward to recovery can be like. And given where you started in our conversation, your personal anecdote there, I imagine that's one of the great challenges of what you get to do, even though no one wants to be on the training table. Yeah, absolutely. I take that really seriously. Our staff takes that really seriously. When a guy gets injured, they're at their most vulnerable, moment a lot of times in their lives. You're dealing with people's lives. You're dealing with people's human. They're humans. They're dealing with bodies. We're not dealing with computers. We're not dealing with cars. And this is their livelihood. And so you really trust, relationships, connection, being competent are so critical in this profession, because when a guy tears his knee up and his season's
might be over, I mean, he's leaning on you to get him back to the where he wants to get to the next year, and if not better. And so we take a lot of pride in that. And you're right, it's a very strenuous process and very important process that we're responsible for.
Reggie, what role does sleep play in helping NFL players in these Los Angeles Rams achieve their highest level of performance?
Yeah, well, kind of going back to your question before, when we look at various recovery strategies over the years, there's been a lot of studies on things you look at, and sleep continues to be one of the most important recovery strategies we have. It's been there since the beginning, and it's funny, as we come up with all these various different recovery strategies, nothing's better than sleep. Sleep is critical. And so sleep hygiene, educating these guys on sleep, the importance of sleep has been a point of emphasis for us over the past few years, and it's paid dividends.
More of a focus now than maybe when you started, based on that advancement?
Absolutely, it really has. And just that whole recovery world in general. It's funny, going back to guys being injured, I think over the years we've learned that, you don't have to be sick to get better, is what we say all the time, is that, what can we do from a recovery strategy just after practice, after games, to get you turned over so you're not on the training table, right? And so, looking at sleep is one of the key components of that, and how we look at that and how we educate today.
Your teammates, your clients, if you will, are in an interesting demographic. A lot of them are in their young 20s. I think back, if I can remember, to when I was in their shoes. Sleep probably wasn't much of a priority, wasn't top of mind, wasn't something that I put at the forefront of my health. How do you pitch them on this and get them to buy in?
Yeah, that's the magic question with everything you do, and it starts with education. It really does. The cool thing about these young men in the NFL that are coming up is they are truly learning different various recovery strategies as you see over time. They're starting to see the importance of it. So that's been really cool to see. But early on, call it 5, 6, 7 years ago, when you're trying to really introduce some of these strategies, it's not easy. With technology and phones, with TVs, with video games, you can imagine, teaching somebody, educating them on strategies of sleep and how it can be difficult. But it starts with education. It starts with buy-in. And then what you hope to get is successful outcomes. Once you get successful outcomes, you got them. And that's kind of our strategies on how we phase this.
How about when you go on the road, as the Rams do at least 10 times per year? How do you optimize their schedules to give the players the best chance to get a good night's rest to perform on game day? Yeah,
that's a great question. We kind of sit down with a team of the performance team, and we sit down and go through this every year, and kind of task Joey Blake, who's obviously our director of performance nutrition, who's kind of taken by the horns in terms of really developing what we call our sleep program. And one of the key components with scheduling and one of the key components with sleep is rhythm. Really understanding circadian rhythm and making sure that we stay on rhythm. So what we try to do is, as we cross different time zones, as we cross different areas in terms of, scheduling, Monday night game versus Sunday night versus how can we stay in rhythm as much as possible? How can we keep these guys in a normal rhythm of staying at home? Traveling 2 days ahead versus 1 day ahead. They get one more extra day in rhythm at their home, in their bed. We're really finding some really cool strategies there. And then outside of that is, how can we manipulate that rhythm if we need to, in terms of if it's some type of sleep supplements that we need to do to help guys get to sleep if we're out of a different time zone, or the opposite, if we need to try to get guys up using sunlight, things of that nature.
And then lastly, Reggie, I wonder if there's anything that Sleep Number specifically has done to help the Rams achieve their goals.
So, once again, going with technology, how technology has really advanced our recovery strategy. I think Sleep Number has done a good job of keeping up with that technology also. Sleep Number has been around for a long time, but they've done such a really good job with developing an app-based system where you can really track your sleep, track how you're sleeping, when you're going to sleep and when you're waking up. And so what I think's really been cool with Sleep Numbers, as they offer the beds for the players, is using the IQ app and using their technology. Guys can really not only have better sleep hygiene, but track how they're doing, seeing when they're going to bed, when they're getting up, seeing how quality their sleep was. And now, going back to before when I said it's so important to educate them, now we can educate them. Mm-hmm. They can actually do an action plan, and we can actually truly see the fruit or the measurement or the outcome of how they've done. So really, it really helps us close the loop on seeing, when you're talking about a successful outcome, that last piece on, hey, I implemented something, had an actionable change, I felt better, and oh wow, I can actually look at the measurements of it. Sure. That really gets the buy-in. And so Sleep Numbers allowed us to make our job a lot easier when it comes to educating, because they can see the fruit on the back end.
Sure. Bigger, faster, stronger. Now you can also show them better rested and prepared for game day.
That's exactly right. And specifically, too, I love the circadian rhythm aspect of it. Hey, what time are you going to bed every night and getting up every day? And that's so critical for sleep. You can't go to bed at 7, 9, 10, 12. Your body's not going to like that. So I can look at their app and we can look at it together and it's like, wow, 9, 10, 9:30 versus 9, 10, 11. I mean, that's an easy thing that I can educate them on how to change that and see that manipulation of change through their app. So it's been really cool to work with them and have those kind of products for us.
As always, Reggie, enjoy getting to chat with you. Thanks for sitting down and telling us a little bit more about your backstory and how Sleep Number has helped the Rams.
JB, thank you, man. Enjoyed.
And let's continue now by bringing in Dr. Peter Polos, our next guest, for more on the Rams and sleep performance. Doctor, thank you so much for joining us. What do you think is the overall importance of sleep and recovery for athletes like the Rams?
Well, thank you for having me, JB. I think the importance of sleep for recovery, and particularly for the professional athlete, is critical. If you think about the activities of what a professional athlete, especially a football player, goes through the course of a week, through practice and then actual game day, the physical toll on their body, one of the many attributes of sleep, if I can use that word, is that it allows time for the body to recover. And I know that seems obvious, but the recovery is not just, I go to bed tired and fatigued from practice and a game and wake up refreshed. It's biologic, it's physiologic, it's muscle repair, it's protein synthesis to lay down new protein for the next day's activities. It's cognitive and mental activity where whatever was practiced that day is now imprinted and learned so that the next day it's easier. For example, the playbook. When they're working on plays and doing walkthroughs, at that time, when they're sleeping at night, that allows their brain to prioritize what is important to recall the next day, and given everything that we're all bombarded with during the day, to take the less important things and sort of put them in the back files. That memory is imprinted, muscle recovery, time for the brain to rest, and time then just for the physical rest of the body.
So if you're consulting with an athlete and they said to you, Doctor, why should I prioritize sleep? How would you answer that question?
Well, I would ask them, do they prioritize their diet? And I'm sure they'd say yes. I would ask them, do they prioritize their workout? I'm sure yes. Do they prioritize the importance of their practice? Yes. Then I would say, of all those things, what do they do for 7 or 8 hours a day continuously? And they would say, none of that. And I would say, but you do sleep 7 or 8 hours a day. So a major chunk of your day is driven by a biologic process that we all have to go through. That should tell you something. And you have to prioritize that 6, 7, 8 hours sleep that you get so that it's sufficient quantity, which is at least 7 hours, and sufficient quantity that is undisturbed, restful sleep where one goes through all the stages of sleep so that the benefits that we already have spoken about can begin to kick in.
I think we can all understand the importance physically of getting sleep, but how about mentally? Can we zoom in there a little bit? How do you gain a mental advantage through quality sleep?
So that's a very good question because I think that's underappreciated as you're alluding. It's obviously the physical aspect we can see, but we do know that that as one goes through the stages of sleep, particularly REM, we get to REM sleep. So let's take a minute and just talk about the stages. There's 3 stages of sleep, 1, 2, and then deep sleep, 3, and then REM sleep. Some of the functions that we've spoken about, protein synthesis, growth hormone release to lay down new protein, muscle recovery, occur in the stage 3 sleep for the most part. When we go to REM sleep, which is when our body is really physically unable to move, there's just total muscle relaxation, our brain is extremely active. If you do brain scans, you see the metabolic activity in REM sleep. That's when you are learning the lessons of the day. And as I said, backfiling the things that are less important. And I think that cognitive recharge that we get when we sleep, particularly when an athlete, is important. Again, to imprint the plays, to imprint what it was they learned on the practice field that day, and we'll learn the rest of the week. I think for non-athletes, we all know when we have poor sleep, if you think back to when you were in school, high school, college, when you had poor sleep, you just didn't function well in class. You just didn't function well in tests. We know that people who pull all-nighters typically don't do as well testing as people who get a good night's sleep could wake up to restudy in the morning rather than pull an all-nighter because you don't give that brain that time to process and learn what it needs to learn.
Doctor, I wish I could blame all my academic shortcomings only on lack of sleep, but I know it was far more than that. The NFL season is longer now than it ever has been. Take out the preseason, the offseason program, 17 regular season games. Last year on their way to a world championship, the Rams had to play 21 games. How can sleep and recovery help them win the long game now in the National Football League?
Well, I think that's a great point because it's getting more and more imperative. We're not only having longer seasons, but more and more teams are starting to travel longer and longer distances now to play. We're having more and more games in Europe. We're playing in Central America. So we now have distance and a longer season. So like anything else, the toll just begins to add over time. You can look at the physical toll on players when they report to training camp. No one is injured. Everyone's ready to go. Come back and check by week 16. Every team has had injuries. Every team is battling through it across the league. Why is that? It's a cumulative toll of the season. Well, the cumulative toll of the season makes the sleep even more critical because the things we talked about, the recovery, the learning, the brain recharging, become even more important as you now have a season that's going to go from 21 to 22 or maybe 23 games, depending on playoffs and all of that. So I think it just adds up to the importance in a longer season, now seasons with travel as well.
Yeah, let's continue on that front then, because the Rams do play in every different time zone and even internationally in some seasons. How can you ensure that their rhythms are such that they're getting proper rest to perform at their highest?
See, that's very tough. To the non-NFL player, we have the luxury of traveling across multiple time zones, getting to our destination, and for the most part, taking a couple days to adjust. If we have a meeting, perhaps maybe we go a day or two early and adjust. The NFL teams don't have that luxury. Usually they're flying in and arriving 48 hours before game time, playing a game and leaving immediately the next day. And in some instances, and this has happened, they may not have a bye the following week. They may have to get back and play the following Sunday. So they don't have the luxury that we have to actually adjust. So what do they have to do? I think it's hard to say that in a brief bite here, but what's critical is the distance that they're traveling. The Rams, everything that they travel, unless they're playing up and down the West Coast, they come to the East Coast, it's 4 time zones. That's an adjustment. They go from California to London, now you 7 time zones. They go to Germany, it's 8 or 9 time zones. So that's a factor. So what you have to try and do is realize where you're going. And there are cues. Every team is looking at this, and I've helped a few with this, to adjust their sleep schedule in advance so that when they get there it's not as much of an adjustment. So instead of a 4-hour change, maybe a week or so in advance, you incrementally change your sleep so that it's only a 2-hour adjustment when you get there. Worry about whether you're exposed to light or dark. What you eat on a plane, high protein, not carbohydrate, because that can be disruptive to sleep. Sleeping on the plane is usually a good thing, again, depending on the direction of travel. So it's not an easy answer, but it's something that I think the league and the teams are starting to realize it's not so simple as in the old days, get on a plane, fly, play, and come back, because there's consequences to not doing that the right way.
I like that, how it's changed over time, because even with some complications, it does feel like we're so far ahead of where we used to be. And over the course of your career, I'm curious to know, where have you seen sleep science grow in areas where, whether it's doctors, medical professionals on staff, or the players themselves can really enhance their performance based on what we've learned?
So that's a great question. So let me answer it on the micro level first. Compliments to teams like the Rams, to the league, to understanding, wow, sleep is important. But then taking that sort of up to a broader audience, I think the very fact that we're having conversations like this, I think the very fact that you can put on a television program and on a commercial see someone talk about their sleep disruption, their sleep issues, self-help groups that are available online. I think the general discussion is getting out there about sleep. And I think things like technology have helped. We have wearable devices that many people rely on. We have non-wearable devices that are very accurate, like the beds that Sleep Number has that actually acquire that information where you don't have to wear anything. The point is, the public wants data. The league wants data. If there's any business data-driven, certainly it's the NFL. But the general consumer is interested in that as well. So when you look at something like a Sleep Number smart bed, where you go to sleep and you wake up and it gives you information about your sleep quality, or you have a wearable that you have to wear, you're still looking at the data and informing your sleep, and then taking that data, if you need to your physician or to your trainer, and say, okay, what's going on with my sleep? How can I make it better?
Doctor, what are some of the specific benefits of using the Sleep IQ technology?
Well, I think the benefits are that we think we know how well we sleep, how long we sleep, what our quality of sleep is, by how we wake up in the morning. And that's only part of the story. So if you have a good night's sleep, you wake up generally feeling well. But if you don't have a great night's sleep, what is it that caused that? Is it frequent awakenings? Is it tossing and turning? Maybe you're not actually waking up and getting out of bed, but your sleep quality is fragmented by something, by snoring, by position, by temperature, by your bed partner. I mean, we see that frequently. One may want the bed warm, one may the room warm, one cool. What's the proper setting? How do individuals or couples resolve that? And sometimes when I see patients who talk about their sleep, I tap into the technology they have, whether it's a Sleep IQ bed or whether it's a wearable. Let me see your data. Let's look at what's going on with your sleep and see what we can do in your environment or your sleep routine and habits to improve your sleep quality. So it now gives objective data, objective information to the patient and to their physician.
My wife always points the finger at me. I'm afraid that Sleep IQ technology might validate a lot of her concerns and accusations there, doctor.
One wants it warm, one wants it cold, right?
No, that's okay. She just wants me on the couch. There is a lot of that. Yes, absolutely. We just had a great conversation with Reggie Scott, who's been so good to us, so good to the Rams. In what ways do you work with Reggie to educate the Rams team on their sleep and recovery?
So, the Rams are among a handful of teams that are really taking the lead on understanding the importance of sleep. And I have to compliment Reggie and the organization on that, because they have acknowledged that, hey, we cover every base to make these guys, put them in a position to perform maximally. And another base we have to focus on is their sleep. So we work with them to provide lectures. In fact, I lectured at training camp this summer to talk specifically about sleep and the benefits of sleep. Where we work with Reggie when needed to analyze any data that they have, to track some of the data and performance, and that's an interesting aspect as well. We have some data that's available to us that actually will look at a patient's sleep score using the smart beds and looking at their performance metrics and see if they correlate. And sometimes when performance is off, we might see that their sleep had been off the week or two preceding that. So you take that information, you go back to the team, back to the trainers, back to Reggie, and say, hey, here's what we're seeing here. Or conversely, they come to us and say, we would like you to look at some data on a particular athlete. We're seeing some things perhaps on performance, concentration. Is there something we can work on? So it's a very collaborative experience between the two of us to, again, put these guys in a position where they have that competitive advantage over the guy that they're looking at across the line.
Doctor, last one for me. I think there's a lot of instances in our history where sports have led the way and that the broader society has adopted some of the best practices from things we've learned from the athletic space. Do you believe that this is one of those instances where professional athletes kind of set the model and that in their sleep adoption, there's lessons to be learned for us, the lay person, to achieve our peak performance as well through Sleep IQ technology?
Another great question. I think so. I mean, so many of the lay population look up to athletes, whether you're young or even an adult like us. Either look up to them in the level of, wow, look what they can do. Maybe as a younger person, you aspire to do that. and you look for examples, and we look at their performance, we look at their off-field involvement in community services, and we think how great that is and how that inspires a community, both adults and kids. Well, we so too can look at them and say, look, this individual who cares about his body because his body is his career in the end, who sleeps, who eats well, who exercises regularly, who doesn't indulge in anything that's going to hurt his body, and worries about his sleep. If he can do that to perform at that level, maybe I should think about doing that. So I very much think they could take advantage of their position in society where they are looked up to by many, or at least looked on by others like, wow, that's an amazing skill. If that God-given skill that they have requires that they have good sleep, we should certainly look at ourselves and say, if they need good sleep, maybe it's something I need to think about as well.
Doctor, thank you so much for your insight and perspective. I know there's probably no off-season in your profession, but wishing you a restful one nonetheless.
Thank you very much, JB. It's a pleasure having you. I wish you a good, happy New Year.
All right, for Dr. Peter Polos and for Reggie Scott, I'm JB Long. Thank you for joining us for this special edition of Rams Revealed.